But finally, to anyone out there with a dream, just know that a singular vision, relentlessly pursued, is all it takes. The words echoed through the cavernous ballroom of the Intercontinental, amplified to the point of absurdity. The spotlight caught a single piece of silver confetti on the lapel of Xavier's custom-tailored suit, a tiny, brilliant star. He was holding the Innovator of the Year award, an award for our app, and he hadn't said my name once. Everyone at our table was looking at me, a mix of pity and morbid curiosity on their faces. As he walked back from the stage, glowing with triumph, he stopped by my chair. I looked up at him, my expression unreadable. That was a beautiful speech, Xavier. We met at a 2 a.m. hackathon, fueled by cheap energy drinks and a shared disgust for inefficient user interfaces. Xavier wasn't a coder, but he could talk. He could spin a story around a line of code that made it sound like poetry. First great memory was sketching the entire architecture of our app, Scribe, on a grease-stained napkin at the Griddle House. The excitement was so pure it felt like a physical force. The first red flag came a month later, pitching to a minor angel investor. He presented our joint concept deck and used the word I 12 times. I counted. When I mentioned it later, he laughed it off. Just nerves, he said. You know how it is, you have to project confidence. I chose to believe him. Next 18 months were a blur of creation. We landed a $75,000 seed round and set up in a cramped corner of a WeWork on 17th Street. The golden period was real. There were late nights debugging with him, bringing me lukewarm coffee, celebrating our first 10,000 beta users with tacos from a food truck, feeling like we were genuinely building the future together. But the balance began to shift so slowly I barely noticed. I was the one pulling all-nighters, refactoring the core database, while he was at industry mixers and synergy sessions. I was building the brand, he'd say. I was building the product. The cracks appeared in language first. In emails to our investors, he started referring to Scribe as my platform. He was the visionary, I was the technician. I rationalized it. He was the face of the company, it made sense. The discovery was an accident. I was searching our shared Google Drive for an old tax form and typed in the wrong search term. A folder I'd never seen before popped up, Scribe Legacy Solo. My access should have been restricted, but he'd messed up the permissions. Inside was a parallel universe. Revised incorporation documents, dated 6 months prior, that listed him as the sole inventor and majority shareholder. My role had been legally demoted to early-stage contractor. The blood drained from my face. That night, I started my investigation. It took 2 weeks. I ran a file recovery program on our old shared hard drives. I meticulously documented my GitHub commit logs, which showed my account as the author of 92% of the foundational code. I found 217 emails where I had to explain the app's core logic to him, often multiple times. The betrayal wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a dataset. The breaking point was that awards gala. I'd invited my parents, so proud to show them what we'd built. Seeing their confused, hurt faces as Xavier accepted the award on his own was a special kind of hell. After his speech, he came to our table, holding the heavy glass trophy. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Look, I know this is hard for you, he said, his voice low and patronizing so only I could hear. Some people are meant to be the spark and others are meant to carry the flame. You were a great spark, but this company needs a leader, not just a coder. He patted my shoulder, a gesture of finality. The world went quiet. All I could see was the trophy in his hand, and on its polished wooden base I saw a tiny, overlooked detail, the stylized logo of the manufacturer, Sterling Creations. I'd seen that name before. It was on an invoice in the secret folder, an invoice he'd paid with company funds. The plan began to form in that frozen, silent moment. My first call was to Vanessa Thorne, an IP lawyer whose reputation was terrifyingly effective. Her hourly rate was $600. The $15,000 retainer cleared out most of my savings. She listened to the whole story without interruption, her face impassive. When I finished, she said, "We're not going to sue him for credit. We're going to execute a hostile corporate takeover based on intellectual property fraud." The preparation took a month. Vanessa drafted the documents while I gathered the final pieces of leverage. List was damning. My GitHub logs, the time-stamped Figma design files, the original napkin sketch we'd both signed and scanned, and a sworn affidavit from a computer science student named Leo who'd been our waiter at the Griddle House that first night. He remembered me explaining the database structure to a clueless-looking Xavier. The ironic coincidence came from my deep dive into the company's financials. I found the invoice for the award itself. Xavier had paid Sterling Creations $8,250 for a custom executive trophy, dated 3 weeks before the nominations were even announced. He hadn't just accepted an award, he'd commissioned it. As a decoy, Vanessa let a rumor slip that I was preparing a lawsuit for emotional distress. Xavier told a mutual friend I was being hysterical. He walked right into the trap, completely blind to the real threat. The execution was set for the quarterly board meeting. The 5 of us, me, Xavier, and our 3 seed investors, sat around a sterile glass table on the 40th floor overlooking the city. Xavier finished his presentation, a fire hose of vanity metrics and projected growth. He was beaming. I let the silence settle for a moment. Thank you, Xavier. I have a few clarifications on the IP ownership. He laughed, a short, sharp bark. This isn't the forum for employee grievances. Let's stay on track. One of the investors, Ms. Vance, a woman who rarely spoke, looked at me and said, let her speak. The first wave was Vanessa, patched in via speakerphone. She calmly walked the board through the original incorporation documents versus the fraudulent ones, the GitHub history, the evidence of my sole authorship. Xavier's face went from smug to ashen. He sputtered about evolving roles and handshake deals. Then came the killer proof. Connected my laptop to the room's projector and displayed the invoice from Sterling Creations. You didn't win an award for Scribe, Xavier, I said, my voice steady. You bought one. You submitted your own nomination using a shell company and then commissioned the trophy with company funds before the judging even began. I highlighted the line item, categorized under marketing expenses. Dead silence. Ms. Vance stared at the invoice, then at Xavier, her expression like carved granite. He looked at me, his eyes wide with the shock of a man who had been completely outmaneuvered. You were right, I told him. I was the spark. The next 24 hours were chaos. The board voted unanimously to oust him, effective immediately. My phone vibrated nonstop with calls from investors, friends, and my relieved parents. I ignored them all. Vanessa handled the fallout. Resolution was swift and brutal. Xavier was forced to sell his shares back to the company for the nominal price of $1. I was reinstated as the majority owner and appointed CEO. He lost his job, his equity, his reputation, everything. About 6 months later, I saw him. I was at the Apple store getting my laptop serviced, and there he was, wearing the bright blue employee shirt behind the Genius bar. His face was sallow under the harsh fluorescent lights as he patiently explained to a frustrated old woman why her iPad wouldn't turn on. The innovator of the year was resetting passwords for a living. Moved the company out of the WeWork and into a sunlit office in a renovated warehouse downtown. Our team is small, focused, and collaborative. There's no ego, just a shared quiet satisfaction in building something good. The success feels earned, peaceful. Last week, a tech blog did a profile on Scribe's turnaround. The reporter asked me what I thought was the key to building a successful company. I looked out my new office window at the city stretching out below. A singular vision is important, I said, but a collaborative team is what it really takes. The flame is finally in the right hands.